How's it going, everyone? This is the George here, and today I'm going to be reviewing Guardians of the Galaxy. With Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 coming out in a few weeks, I figured now's the perfect time to review both Guardians of the Galaxy films, because to me, these are some of the most entertaining films in the MCU and some of the best in the MCU. And also, they're all directed by James Gunn, who is now the new president of DC Films. And I've done many streams on James Gunn and his slate on him directing Superman. So, between the upcoming Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 coming out and James Gunn being in charge of DC Films, I figured this is a perfect time to be talking about Guardians of the Galaxy. So, this was the 2014 MCU film, along with Captain America the Winter Soldier, and as I said, this was directed by James Gunn and starred Chris Pratt, Zoe Saldana, Dave Bautista, Bradley Cooper, and Vin Diesel. And we are introduced to the Guardians of the Galaxy, who at first are at odds with each other because they're looking to get the orb, which contains the Power Stone. And then later they are sent to a prison where they meet Drax, who wants to kill Gamora because Gamora is the adopted daughter of Thanos and also works with Ronan the Destroyer, who killed Drax's family. But then they work together to escape and also prevent the Power Stone from falling into the hands of Ronan, who is played by Lee Pace. And I remember seeing trailers for this film, being very interested in this film. This movie came out, like I said, back in 2014. It's a Phase 2 film, and it came out at an interesting time for Marvel because at the time there were only three Phase 2 movies. There was Iron Man 3, Thor the Dark World, and Captain America the Winter Soldier. And I remember I like Iron Man 3 a lot. I still like Iron Man 3 a lot. But I remember it was very divisive because of the whole Mandarin situation that happened. So audiences were divided on that film. Even though critics were overall positive on the film, Thor the Dark World was considered by most, including myself, to be the worst MCU movie. And many still consider that today, nearly 10 years later. But then in 2014, before Guardians came out, Captain America the Winter Soldier came out and was considered to be one of, if not the best MCU movie. And 9 years later, people still think that. So then this film comes out, and it's definitely a more colorful film, and it gave a more entertaining side of the MCU based on what the trailer showed. This was also going to be a science fiction film, kind of similar to Star Wars and Star Trek, where Captain America the Winter Soldier was a lot more grounded, a lot more mature and serious. But 2014 was proof that Marvel can handle any tone. While they pulled off the dark, more grounded tone in Captain America the Winter Soldier perfectly, Guardians of the Galaxy captures the more colorful, sci fi, adventurous tone perfectly as well. And the thing is with Guardians of the Galaxy to understand is while this is definitely one of, if not the funniest Marvel movie still today, it's also a movie that has great character moments and great emotional moments. Like this movie isn't just all for laughs. One of the things that kind of bugs me when it comes to people criticizing James Gunn is they think he's all jokes, he's all like humor. But if you really watch and, look at his Guardians of the Galaxy movies and even look at stuff that he's done like the Suicide Squad and Peacemaker, yeah, there's a lot of humor in those projects, but there's a lot of character moments. There's a lot of emotional moments with these characters. And I think what helps in this film is that each character was casted perfectly well. Chris Pratt is fantastic as Star Lord. He's the main focus out of all the members of the Guardians of the Galaxy team in this film. And you see, like, at first, he's from Earth, and, his mom dies of cancer, and it's a very emotional moment. But then you see him get abducted, and you find out, like, what he's been up to all these years in space. He's been working for Yondu. And while he's usually at odds with Yondu, for some reason, Yondu, despite his threats, tends to be very lenient with Star Lord, with Peter Quill. And we learn more about that in the next Guardians of the Galaxy film. Zoe Saldana as Gamora, great as well. While she's the adopted daughter of Thanos, that's seen as the favorite daughter of Thanos. You also see that she wants to own up to the mistakes that she's made. She wants to do the right thing and prevent this Power Stone from falling into the wrong hands. And she also tends to have the most common sense out of the members of the Guardians of the Galaxy. Drax the Destroyer, played by Dave Bautista. Great performance. I know Dave Bautista, he's been very critical of his take on Drax, that he wish he could have done more. But Dave Bautista, to me, is one of the better actors that was once a wrestler that converted into acting. In my opinion, I think he's better than Dwayne Johnson. Nothing against Dwayne Johnson. I think he's a very good actor. But I feel like Dave Bautista is just a lot better. And the thing I love about Drax is at times he's very serious, but at times he's also very humorous. Like, this is a very funny character who also has a tragic backstory. Like I said before, he wants revenge on Ronan because Ronan killed his wife and his daughter. Other great characters were Groot and Rocket Raccoon. These are two characters that you could easily mess up. Like, that you can easily just make comic relief characters that can easily become like another Jar Jar Binks. But that doesn't happen. Rocket Raccoon is one of the best characters as far as like members of Guardians of the Galaxy. And the other thing I like about Rocket is, while like he seems very bitter and very like harsh at times, he's also very caring. And you see him like warming up to this team as the film goes on. At one point, he admits like they're the only people that he seems to care for. And then when Groot makes a sacrifice, you see how upset Rocket is. But even Rocket has some baggage on him. At one point, very in a very drunk rant, accuses other members of the team of mocking him and insulting him and thinking that he's some kind of monster because he was experimented on. So it feels like every character has some baggage on them. And I like that Gunn is able to give each of these characters their own moment. You gotta also remember, we are being introduced to these characters for the first time. It's not like the Avengers where most of them either have their own solo film before the first Avengers film, or even if they didn't have a solo film, they still appear in someone else's film. And this is like mostly 2 hours and a couple minutes longer. So Gunn has to introduce these characters in a 2 hour film, and he does it perfectly well. And the costume designs, the makeup, handled very well. It looks fantastic. We are also introduced, well, not introduced, but we see more of Thanos. But this is the first time we see Josh Brolin play Thanos. I know Thanos was in the end credit scene of the first Avengers film, but this is the first time we're seeing Josh Brolin play him. And even though it's very brief, right away you get this intimidating feel from Thanos. Like, you can tell like this guy in the future is gonna be the perfect main antagonist when stuff goes down with these Infinity Stones. As far as Ronan the Destroyer goes, like the other members, the makeup looks great. I remember I was never really the biggest fan of Ronan the Destroyer, but I feel like as time has passed, I've also learned to appreciate him more. Like, overall, he's not Loki as far as game changing villains go for the MCU, but he's also a lot better than a lot of the MCU villains that we've gotten. So I would say like Ronan has somewhat aged better, although he's not one of the best comic movie villains, but I feel like he doesn't need to be. But when this guy is in on the action, he's very intimidating. So I do like Ronan overall, but he's not one of my favorite comic book villains. I love the soundtrack of this film as well. I love Gunn's choice of music. Gives like a really retro vibe. But Guardians also reminds me of like the classic science fiction films, but done in a more modern setting. But yeah, with Guardians of the Galaxy, I enjoy this film. I enjoy the cast members. I enjoy the characters. The thing that I also learned to appreciate the most about this first Guardians of the Galaxy film is, like, obviously we learn more about the Infinity Stones. We learn more about Thanos in this film, even though it's not like a whole lot. But it's done in a way where it's not a setup film. It's mostly focused on being a Guardians of the Galaxy origin story, introducing us to these characters, setting up this team. And that's something that Marvel needs to get back to because I still enjoy the MCU, but it feels like at times they focus more so on setting up the next film instead of focusing on the film that they're working on right now. Movies like Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumanium. I want Marvel to get back into doing more movies like Guardians of the Galaxy. Now, obviously, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 is going to be James Gunn's last Marvel film, so you're not going to have another James Gunn, and it's very hard to, replicate that because we've seen other Marvel movies try to be similar to Guardians of the Galaxy, and they don't do it as well as Guardians of the Galaxy. But I think overall, just focus on telling good stories and focusing on the story that you're telling right now. Don't focus on the next big event film just yet. Like you have those hints in there, but it's not the main focus. It's very brief. The focus is telling a Guardians of the Galaxy story. But yeah, this is still one of the best MCU movies. 2014 was a terrific year for the MCU in general. And again, for a group of characters that aren't exactly household names, and I'm not saying they're like Spider-Man or the X-Men, but like they're not even like as well known as like Doctor Strange and Black Panther were even before they got their own movie. They did great with this film. This is one of my favorite, not just favorite Marvel movies, but one of my favorite comic book movies in a while. And I'm gonna give Guardians of the Galaxy an A+. I highly recommend you check it out. It's a lot of fun. It's got great character moments. It's got great action in the film. It's a great science fiction film, as well as a great Marvel film. And yeah, the makeup work, top notch. Like, I didn't talk enough about it, but I looked it up before I did this review, and yeah, they spent hours on this makeup work, and it just looks phenomenal. And that's a rarity to see nowadays because a lot of studios rely on VFX, special effects work for character designs. But what are your thoughts on Guardians of the Galaxy? Do you love this film? Did you hate this film? And what's one of your favorite Marvel movies? One of your favorite MCU movies? While Guardians of the Galaxy isn't my favorite, it's definitely one of my favorites. Let me know in the comments down below, and I want to thank you guys for watching. Please like and subscribe already if you haven't. Please share this with someone that loves the Guardians of the Galaxy films, that loves MCU films, and I hope to see you guys real soon. Take care, everyone.